Okay, go ahead and get shared out here, and you can just let me know when you'd like me to move forward, and we'll push the slides up.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So far, we're further ahead than we were last week because I couldn't share Clifton's slides. So I need a little counseling on that, a little coaching on, again, trying to do the PowerPoint thing. So appreciate that. But the three experiences that were spoken of at conference a couple of weeks ago, we're going to go through them here. Some interesting things in terms of the church today and tomorrow. So we'll just flip the slide, go into what's the first one is. Okay, I'm going to need readers today because there's three of these things that are pretty detailed. So could I get a reader for, this one is entitled Bringing in the Sheaves, and it was had on June 16th of this year. So can I have a reader for this one? It's a couple pages here.
I can read it.
Okay.
I arrived home from work this evening, and the Spirit compelled me to pray. I humbled myself before the Lord and prayed, and the gift of tongues came forth, followed by the word of the Lord, saying, "See now what I place before you, and hear the words that I will give, thus saith the Lord." I then beheld a vision. I saw brothers of the priesthood, including the quorum of 12, laboring and working in the field, tilling the ground. The sky darkened as if rain was coming. I saw a large structure, a place of safety in the distance. The brothers then realized that a storm was approaching. They walked to the place of safety. They all gathered together with no fear about them. The great storm then began. Rain fell heavily and saturated the ground. The brothers began to sing the hymn, Bringing in the Sheaves. All brothers were united and blessed to be working alongside each other.
The next slide then continues.
The gift of tongues came forth again, followed by the word of the Lord, saying, "Thus saith the Father in heaven, the Creator, the Purveyor of all, the Provider of all, the Savior of all. For I have given all through my Son, Jesus Christ. See now that they would recognize the times around them. See now that they would obey my voice and my spirit as it leads them to safety. See now that they come together without fear, united. See now, my spirit dwells greatly amongst them in unity, and they sing praises unto me. Know now that this time is shortly before you. Many things have transpired to cause an awakening and an arousal of your faculties, to understand and know that my promises are coming to pass. Let now your spirit witness unto others. Let now your spirit feel the direction I am giving. Have no fear, but come together. For at the appointed time, I will give greater direction.
I think there's one more.
At the appointed time, my united ministry will hear my voice, and they will know that it is my voice, and there will be no disputations, but they will all have confirmation through their spirit, because they are connected to me, the Father in heaven, for I am the provider. Continue now to share this message. Continue to prepare your hearts and draw closer unto the principles of my Son, Jesus Christ, who gave his all, and you will see the greater things, thus saith the Lord.
Okay, next slide. The song Bringing in the Sheaves was something that supplemented this this experience. And you can hit that, you know this song. I think we were going to prepare to sing it this morning, but I don't think we can do that. But anyhow, this is the element of what was supporting the song about bringing in the sheep, bringing in the people. And hit the slide again, please. And it kind of goes into the chorus here as well. Hit the one more slide. So the whole idea, again, the Quorum of 12 has these 4 questions that they discuss. So surrounding any dream or experience that's had to find out what is it relevant and what does it mean. So the theme of this particular conference, and I guess the reason why they wanted as many presiding elders there was this concept of unity. We had a special meeting on Friday there for just the quorum of 70 and the presiding elders, and the quorum of 12. Several of them got up at different times to talk about this dream, or this experience rather, in relationship to all of us who have some responsibilities within the church to create this spirit of unity. I spoke about that last week a little bit and gave some examples of what Jesus Christ said about us uniting with him and his Father. And that's kind of what they're trying to do. This dream, this experience is something that ties back to that, there's a pressing need by the Lord to have us more united, not only as a ministry, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more, but as a church as a whole. I think we know that, as individuals, we all have different opinions and sometimes different directions on where we should be going and what we should be doing. But from this particular experience and what was said here, the Lord wants us now. He said 4 times, see now that they do this and they do this and do this. His point is you need the more unity, beginning with the priesthood. This is the first question is a revelation of God, and is God making known something new, or reaffirming, revealing, or reminding us of blessings that are before this church? And what they're saying here is God is reminding us of the importance of a priesthood. That's untied. That's not what we're trying to say. United through Christ. He's also revealing and reminding us of the blessings that are before us of the church. Next slide, Jeremy. What does it mean? It says, in the vision, all of the priesthood were laboring together with a quorum of 12. And there was a level of unity that already exists at the beginning of the vision. And it said the sky darkened, and to recognize that the storm was coming. And storms, as we know here in Colorado, have a great deal of energy and can be threatening. But they said that the people there, the ministry was remaining calm in spite of the storm that was coming. It says they calmly moved closer together, gathering under a shelter, and that shelter symbolizes a greater unity that's available to the brothers in the ministry per se. When the storm came, the heavy rain, there were no signs of fear or contention. Rather, the focus was on the blessings that were going to be given. And the saturated ground, they said, represents the stimulus to growth and harvest. And the song, Bringing in the Sheaves, indicates the realization of the promises associated with this greater unity. So let's go to number 3. It says, the word of the Lord tells us what he wants us to glean from the vision. A priesthood is commissioned to labor for the Lord. He expects us to recognize the times because of the things that are transpiring. And we see that every day. Crazy world, crazier every day. And that was the storm that was coming. And everyone was huddled together to kind of deal with the storm that was coming. It says, as he's speaking to us, he wants us, our obedience and our willingness to lead us to safety and unity. And that's whole idea, the unity. In John 17th chapter, the 20th and 23rd verses, we spoke about that last week. Jesus had conversation with his disciples, and he was praying for them to the Father about being thankful that he had those 12 that could take care of the gospel and what his purpose was here on earth, because he knew that it was ending for him soon. And then the 20th to the 23rd verse is all of us. The Lord took time out before his crucifixion and all the other things that were on the agenda for him to think about all of us and how we need to be united with him and his Father as one. So this is a twofold experience that's talking about unity from both the priesthood's point of view and from all of us as a membership. And then if you read Alma 26th chapter, well, first say that's where Alma was just rejoicing with the fact that as the church came together, that there was unity in what was being done there. So that again re-emphasized the whole concept of being united as one. Next slide. Does it apply to the church or an individual? It says it applies to the entire priesthood of the church, and the priesthood must be willing and have the desire to work towards the unity of the Spirit of Christ. It's a positive experience. The storm is viewed as an opportunity and not a threat. And the priesthood united under Christ leads to a tremendous blessing. Next slide. So if it applies to the church, how can we implement this message? It says the application of this experience is for the priesthood to work towards the greatest unity. That's where the emphasis was at conference. You guys in the ministry, you brothers in the ministry, need to kind of get it together better than we've had in the past, and try to kind of just make a common purpose, because it says here, we need to recognize that if we feel connected to Christ, which is what Jesus himself talked about in the 17th chapter of John, there's differences of opinion, but we've got to learn that there may be other ways through prayer, discussion, through introspection, whatever, to kind of settle those differences for the unity of the church, so the gospel of Jesus Christ can go forth. And this last point here, it says, in the, where is it? Why this doesn't work on this? The unity in the membership very likely will correlate with the unity in the priesthood. And so the membership can continue to work in labor and prayer to support the priesthood. So it's, again, a together message. Everyone's got to start working together because the Lord is active. We're going to see this in the other two experiences. We can see this in the world today. He's stirring it up. And, and we've had the warning, so to speak. We've had the direction that as I stirred up, you who believe, truly believe and stay together in this mess that's around, you're going to be okay. Any comments or questions on that one? I don't know if you had. Now let's go to the next one.
Brother, well, I was just going to say, I think the storm, when I was hearing this experience, I think the storm could represent a couple things. One, obviously the crazy storms of life that we're seeing in the world today, but also in the, I don't remember if it was Joel or another passage where the church was asking us to read and study at some point, but they were talking about the former rain and the latter rain, and how the latter rain is going to be heavier because the latter rain in Israel was heavier. And that rain, I think what the ministry was saying, represents people, souls coming in for the harvest. And even though there's going to be great turmoil, I think in this latter day, we're going to see the church grow in great number, those who are sincerely looking for the truth. So I think even though I think it's kind of twofold. One, obviously we're seeing, great turmoil, but the priesthood was calm. So that means that, there's a great work that we have to do, and the work has to be the focus. I think that's so interesting.
Great segue into the next experience. This one is the seed of Joseph work. And these next two are going to be focusing on that. So can I have a reader on this one? I think there's a couple pages on this.
I can read it.
Okay.
The Quorum of 12 has been prayerful that the Lord will direct us as a church regarding our energies and resources towards the work among the natives. There has been much success recently with various outreach efforts as we as a quorum are feeling the Lord moving us, and we want to move according to his will. On the morning of August 20th, 2022, I was meditating and praying for this direction. Specifically, I was contemplating in which direction our main focus should be, as we have a worldwide international works as well as Native American works to service. While in his mode of prayer and contemplation, I was reminded of a message that the Lord gave me at the Conference of the Americas in 2020. I felt that this message applied to my questions of direction, but I wanted greater confirmation. See the following experience from 2020. Thus saith the Lord to my people now. Hear the word of the Lord. Hear and understand. Short is the time that you have to continue to labor in this vineyard. Short for my judgments are before you, and they are the judgments of the righteous God. This righteous God sees the hearts of the sincere believers, and he sees the hearts and the sin's desire of his people who seek the teaching, the ways, and are willing to follow Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world that I have sent. And so I now, as I say, the time is short, labor to bring in other souls. Labor that your hearts may be right. Labor that your spirits may be one with me. Labor labor, that your families may know that I am the true Lord God. Prepare, prepare, for though turmoil is around, yet look ahead and see the glory of my kingdom being established. See in the distance now, my son, that all that he has to be established before your very eyes, and the peace that will exist in this mountain home that I have prepared, that I will reveal in my time. Yes, shortly you will see. Prepare now and labor, that you may bring forth fruit, that you may bring forth fruit, that you may be stored up unto me in my name, thus saith the Lord. I asked the Lord for confirmation of the message, and the word of the Lord came forth stating, to my people, thus saith the Lord.
The next one.
Now,
This is
today.
a new one. Okay, go ahead.
as I thought about the experience I had in 2020, I began to pray, asking the Lord for greater clarity. I arose from prayer and could not stop the thought that the Lord was giving direction, but I was still not clear on the direction. I heard the voice say, pray again. I began to pray again, asking the Lord to help me understand why the message from 2020 was brought to my mind and how the Lord wanted us to proceed. While in this mode, the gift of tongues came forth, followed by the word of the Lord stating, hear the Father's voice this morning. Know now that I direct and I inspire the minds of men, and that I have given these words before. They apply now. They direct you to this part of my vineyard. For though my Jesus, my son, my Savior, that I have given for the entire creation, though he is for all, yet know that my plan, it begins with the house of Joseph. And as I have made covenant with those righteous throughout the ages of time, my covenants will be fulfilled. And so now it is my plan that the knowledge of my son, Jesus Christ, begins with the house of Joseph. And this will unlock the latter day blessings. So as you have been given now the record that reveals whom Joseph is and where this starts, go now to them. Let your energies be placed upon them so that you may see my hand move. And fear not the natural questions that arise in your mind, for I, the Lord God, will provide. I, the Lord God, will make the way. And remind now, as I had said, my people of what they have to prepare for, and that they may know that I, the Lord God, see and know all things, thus saith the Lord.
Let's see what the next one says. Okay. This is pretty monumental in terms of the church and its direction. And we'll see this more emphasized in the last experience. But in this one from 2020, when the Lord spoke at the Conference of Americas, he repeated many times, labor, labor, labor. He said, prepare, prepare, prepare. And then he interjected, now is the time. And, in the 2022 one, now is the time was the emphasis that was put there. So, the church as a whole is going to do what they call the paradigm shift. And we'll talk about this in a minute in terms of the purpose and commission of the church. But in this one, it says, is this a revelation of God? And the quorum came to the conclusion that God is reaffirming the divine commission of the church. Brother Bob Watson years ago put together a pamphlet. I couldn't find mine. I got to get a new one. But it outlined the commission of the church as the Lord had put forth there many, many years ago, that it was to go to the house of Joseph, the seed of Joseph. Those were the ones that the church has been commissioned to go to and preach the gospel and tell them who Jesus is. And right, wrong, or indifferently, when you look back over the years, the message to the seed of Joseph hasn't been too prevalent by anybody. But we see that changing now. Now, he says here, while the gospel is definitely for all mankind, the Book of Mormon is that book, that a reference that we have. It's clear that the latter day restoration of Israel, that, that clarifies to us again, go and do the work, labor, it says, and prepare. So I'm going to try to get, if you don't have it, I'm going to get the divine commission of the church for us to kind of read and reflect upon, because we will hear more from the church about this work as we go forth. Let's flip the slide. What does it mean? It says our hearts must be right and open to the Spirit as he continues to give us direction that we can follow. We are being directed to this part of my vineyard, is what the experience said. The house of Joseph, the seed of Joseph at this time. says, timing wise, it's noteworthy that this experience coincides with the very active movement, especially in the Southwest of the United States. The Navajos, the Apaches, these activities have stimulated a concentrated effort of continued prayer for the direction by the Quorum of 12. Not only in, we've talked about that, that tent meeting they had a month or so ago down in San Benito. Prior to that, they maybe had a handful of Navajos that would attend the meeting. Now they have over 40 from that one meeting that's down there.
Wow.
And now they've got support from the Navajo leaders that, the Church of Jesus Christ and this message of going to the Native Americans has validity. And our brothers are going to Oklahoma, North Dakota, South Dakota, Canada, Alaska, Montana. They're going to all these places now, and they're being welcomed to speak in these churches that we've never been able to been there before.
Wow.
And that's coinciding.
Yep. Sure is.
With what this means. Let's go to the next slide. God's promises are true. He's been telling us that for so long. And if you read the scriptures, we know the scriptures tell us about the Zion, the scattering of Israel. That was God's plan, is to bring these people back. And what's happening? It's starting to make sense now. And so the specific directions being given to the church to put the focus and energies on that. Next slide. Does it apply to the church? Well, it applies to the entire church. Everybody. Started with the last experience where unity had to be amongst the ministry. And as that unity came, then unity amongst the people came. Because this experience says, there's a work to do now. Labor, labor, labor. It said, we got to get prepared for what's going on. We start to see the clarity. If we open our eyes, we see what's starting to happen. Next slide. If the experience applies to the church, how can we implement the message? It says, continue to be united as a ministry of people. That message has been throughout this whole conference weekend and what we're going to hear going forward from this point. It says that we need to seek the Lord in fasting and prayer. We need to unite ourselves together and let the will of God happen in our lives, whatever that might be. Beginning with the priesthood, there's a lot of work that has to be done with the leadership of the church. And that was discussed and kicked around. And we all walked away from there with the idea that, it has to start with the priesthood of the church, that they got to get on the same page and the same spirit and to be able to let the Lord do what it has to happen here. So again, with the Lord's direction and with unity, the church has considered doing some different things now from a financial and human resource perspective, redirecting some of the effort financially and with manpower, so to speak, in what to do. And again, we begin to see this. The evangelists are going out there more frequently to all these Native American tribes. And the feedback is that they're being welcomed. They're being asked to come back. And we see some people now that are really relative in the Native American communities, speaking on behalf of the church. They have credibility with their own people. They're saying, listen to these people, talk to them. It's something that's different. Next slide. Okay, this is the third experience. It's going to reemphasize unity in the Native American work, and it's going to reset the direction, I think, in terms of where the church is going. So this one was from 7 years ago. Why it was been kicking around? Maybe it wasn't relevant at that time, but in relationship, these first two experiences that came in 2022, someone dusted this thing off from 7 years ago and has brought this forth to be discussed and accepted as an experience of the Lord with the church. So can we have a reader for this one? I think there's a couple pages on this one.
Well, just FYI, I just texted the membership here the link for the Divine Commission
Okay.
document from the church website. Just let you know.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah, take a look at that when you have some time. I mean, that's, again, something that was set up maybe 30 years ago. I think Brother Bob did that in the 80s. and it's kind of been sitting on the shelf. But as a result of these experiences, you're going to hear more and more and more about what that divine commission is for the church. So we get a reader for this one.
One night I had the following dream. I found myself traveling with some brothers, but it felt as though we were family. I'm not sure how else to describe it other than that just a bond a family has, but we were all brothers in the ministry. I remembered hearing one of them saying, "Father, where are we going?" The man driving said, "We're going to visit a lady that has been in prison for a long, long time." The other brother seemed to understand and knew what he was talking about. We passed a car that broke down with a family next to it. I said that we should stop and see if the family needs help. The man driving said, "No, what you must do is more important to the family we are going to see." I thought to myself, I don't even know this family, and I'm not sure where we are going because I've never been on this journey before. The man driving did not turn around. He kept focused on the road ahead and knew exactly where to go. The drive was long and the roads were empty after we passed the car along the road. As we arrived at the prison, it was an area with a building. I remember walking in and seeing a large Native American family greeting our driver, the one we called Father. He had answered to no other name, not was one said to him. The family knew him and greeted him as Father. When we went into the room, there was an elderly Native American lady sitting in the middle of the room. She said, "Are you here to visit again?" Father said, "No, we are here to set you free." As she got up from her chair, she appeared to grow younger with each step. Her family made an aisle as she walked past, and they all smiled and rejoiced in happiness.
Okay, now it's coming together. You know, they were in this car. That father is representative of God. And again, those brothers in the car were the ministry traveling with him. And I got confused a little bit because there was a segment in there that said as they were traveling to this family, there was this car broke down on the side of the road and people needed help. And the brother said, you know, let's stop and help. And the father, the driver of the car, says, no, the family we have to see is more important than this. And that bothered me a little bit. So I called Brother Tom LaBerle yesterday.
Mhm.
And I said, you know, before I present this tomorrow, if the question should come up to me, what about that family? Does that mean with the purpose of the church going forward that we just leave everybody else by the wayside? And I said, what did you talk about as a quorum of 12 with that? And he said, well, no, it doesn't mean that you leave everybody by the wayside. It says that your priority was to go to those people that were in prison and not let things distract you on your purpose to go. And it wasn't that we weren't supposed to help, but that was considered from the Quorum of 12's perspective, that car on the side of the road was a distraction from the work that needed to be done. And so it just emphasized again that the work with the Native Americans, just as the second experience said, needs to be a priority for the church. Because as we saw, that family, the mother, the woman smiled about hearing the news that they're going to be free. And it said that as that she walked, she got younger as time went by, kind of rejuvenated them. And that's what God says. That's what the plan of God says, that as the Native Americans, as Israel comes back to the idea of who they are, you know, all kinds of blessings are going to happen and people will be free from the bondage that they've had. So this was a reaffirmation of the divine commission of the church. And it reveals a prioritization of the spiritual mission of the church, which I've never had before had that emphasized so much. So the one that was referenced was the Father, who was fiddling for the Father being the Lord, and the bond is the Spirit of God. The car with the brothers represented the church, and the individuals in the car was the ministry, united again in the Spirit for a purpose. And we know geographically and physically where the seat of Joseph is located. And the spiritual journey was of the ministry. They were passengers for the Lord to get on this journey. Next slide. What does it mean? It does not pinpoint the beginning of the unique journey. It says developments suggest, and we just talked about that, we're closer to this reuniting of the house of Israel than we've ever been before. And there are some things that we need to start to prepare for. And again, that second experience, right? Labor, prepare. Now comes to this. These are the things that we as a church need to get ready. We get on board and go along with this journey and just trust in the Lord, like this guy did with the driving of the car. He didn't know where he was going, but the brothers in the car had confidence that the driver knew where he was going. And he was just telling everybody, just stay focused. We've got a much more important job to do in this situation. So those who are prepared will be able to understand the journey. And I think that's what the church is going to start to do for us now, prepare us more about that divine commission of the church. Even after this journey begins, the situations will call for attention, and we need to kind of stay focused and continue to take us on this journey. Next slide. Under the circumstances, we, along with the Lord, will reach Joseph, at which point Joseph will recognize the Lord, which is starting to happen. They're beginning to understand that they're Israel, and they can see their relationship. And again, Native American people are very big on culture and history and whatnot. And they're beginning to unwrap the fact that there is this connection that they never thought of before, that they're Israel. And it's coming to fruition, that people are starting to talk about it. They want to hear more about that situation. So this is what this experience is talking about, that we have a part to play in getting that message to those people. Collectively, we as a people of God can be instruments to help bring about the fulfillment of God's plan. Next slide. It applies to the church, beginning with the priesthood again. It's a paradigm shift. That's where you take the focus that you've had and you kind of move it over a little bit and you refocus with the mindset to focus on what's our tasks with the seed of Joseph, how should we allocate our resources to that work, what's the best way to deploy our efforts when we consider the purpose and missions of the church, and while maintaining, and that was emphasized at conference, that the question came up, well, if the Native Americans is our primary work now, what do we do with the IMOC, and what do we do with domestic work and all the missions and branches we got here? Do we forget that? He said, no. It's a rebalancing act. But what's going to take place now is that the Native American work is going to be considered, I wouldn't say in the forefront, but maybe so in that situation. So financially and with human resources, with the ministry that we have and anybody who's able to participate in the work, they're going to be moving along the lines of restoration of the house of Israel with the Lord's direction, it says. And that we need to exercise faith in a greater capacity, as the brother of Jared did, that we can receive and be a part of the fulfillment of the latter-day promises. I think that's the last slide. Is that?
It is.
Okay. All right. So that brings that to a head. Any comments, any revelations that you've had? This is new news to you, or what? What do you think?
Yeah, it definitely points out that the church is in a time of labor. There's times and seasons, but this isn't one for resting per se. It's really a time to redouble efforts, and I think we can only do that by the strength of the Lord, and He can help us renew and accomplish these things. And it does seem to me that there's been a movement afoot for many years, that in recent years that the Native Americans have begun to open up and have begun to move forward in a new way. And where we had perhaps a distance or resistance, it's now becoming easier and easier to befriend these people. And even when we were at Southwest Camp, we were working and talking with some of the Native members and visitors who haven't yet gotten baptized, and there's a receptiveness and openness that we haven't seen, and now we see the church officially recognizing this. And I think it leads us up to a time in which perhaps we need to prioritize them, because the church needs help. We have more works than we can really support as aggressively as we'd like. And as we see Joseph come into the role that's been prophesied for so long, and even come in as a leader to Israel, it will expand our capabilities as the church. And I think that's the reasoning behind this, that the Lord has always planned for Joseph, like he did with Joseph of old, for Joseph to lead Israel and to be in that position. And so it makes sense in keeping with scripture and revelation and history and future that we have that focus.
What I find,
Oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go ahead. I'll wait.
I also got a message through that service that we watched at conference, that the more we try, the more we focus on our labor, the more evil will be coming in to try to separate us from doing it. And I think that last experience, maybe that's what that was on the side of the road. It was going to be the evil trying to distract us from doing what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, good observation. I think you're right.
But what I find interesting, as I've been looking forward to the experience, it brings a confirmation to me from last night. I was just on my porch as usual. That's when I kind of meditate, talk to things of God. And he said, get all the scriptures, the prophecies of the house of Israel, Bible, Book of Mormon. And he said, I want you to cross-reference them. Not in times of, how do you put it, what was being fulfilled, what's yet to come. And so this is the project I'm putting on myself, to go in Bible, Book of Mormon. And that's part of the preparation of as we coming in. And a scripture came to my mind. What really stuck out in me when it's called the Father, it's somewhere in the Book of Mormon or somewhere, it talks about what was the prophecy that the Father will go with you to gather the house of Israel. And we will go with him. So when he came and she said, did you come to visit? So it told me that we're coming to visit. Everything is a visit. That when that time come of the Father, then he's going to bring them home. And all he said, no, I'll come to bring you home. And like you said, she rose up, and as she began to walk, she began to first become last, last become first. She began to walk into light. She began to grow. So for me, this is confirmation, looking forward to. And I like the journey. I call it the journey when God put me on a task to do, because I'm looking for what's going to come out of it.
Yeah, amen.
What I'm going to get out of it in that thing.
Okay. So when you're done with your study there, you need to share that with us, okay?
Okay, my brother, will do.
But again, it's just been so clear lately about the work and what role do you have? We all can't go trips into the reservations, I guess. That's not a possibility for some of us to do, and but there may be other ways that we get called into service to support, to be part of it. So I think we want to be a part of it. I mean, that's our destiny. That's again, the purpose of the Church of Jesus Christ. And that's why we're members. And for so long, we've battled the elements and all these things around us. And, through God's blessings and mercies, he's allowed us to continue to this point. But, in these three experiences, I think he's trying to say, I'm kind of liking it to the NFL preseason, you get to practice a little bit, and then the season starts, and then it's for real, and you got to start doing it. So I think, in essence, to put it another way, I think God's telling us the season's starting. It's time for us to get ready and make the contribution to fulfill what his promises have been. And like in that car, we want to be along for the ride. We want to be in that car. So it starts with unity amongst the priesthood first and foremost. I guess it started with the Quorum of 12, because they admitted that, up until maybe the last year or two, there were differences of opinion even amongst the quorum in terms of what the priorities to be. And I first even talking to many of them when I was back there, there is a unity in spirit amongst them. They're all different personalities, that's for sure. But, for the one thing about the commission of the church and the purpose of what it is, they're getting on the same page. And they're trying to rally the rest of the troops in the leadership role to do the same. And again, when you start to put it out there amongst the ministry of the church, there's diversity and there's differences of opinion and there's all kinds of stuff that needs to come together. And I think that was, again, the emphasis of why they wanted ministry to be there to get this message directly, and then to take this message back out to our congregations and everybody. So,
Brother Walt,
yeah,
can I describe a dream that I had that morning of the
Absolutely.
conference?
sure. You mean that Sunday at conference?
Yeah, that Sunday morning, right before I woke up, because I had my alarm set, because I wanted to make sure I was up early enough to watch the Zoom. That I had a dream that I was like in a church building that you could see the pews, and then also you could see some tables. And I know some of the church buildings do have these walls that'll separate, and then you can open them up. And anyway, I was helping some children, and in my mind, I thought it was like a vacation Bible school or a vacation summer camp or something. And these 4 little boys came to me, and they just had this sad look on their face. They were bored. And I said, don't you want to play sports outside? And they says, no, we don't want to do that. We did that. So anyway, I suggested that they sit at the table and play a game. And I said, how about Clue? I said, that's my favorite game when I was a kid. And they said, okay. So I got the game down, and as they were taking out all the pieces, getting ready to play, I had walked toward the door leading to the outside, and a man ran in holding a gun. And the gun was down at his side. He wasn't pointing it at anybody, but he had this gun. And it just frightened me so much that I ran into where the sanctuary was, and I hid underneath one of the pews. And I could see this man running up between the tables and the pews, and everybody was scattering. He was saying, get down, get down. And then he walked around the back of the building, back of the church, to the other side of the pews, and was walking down the wall there over to the office. Well, as he was walking up towards the back, I thought, okay, I better get in farther. So I scooted in again, farther underneath these pews, and I hid behind Brother Tony DeCaro and a couple other, I think they were ministers, but I'm not sure who they were, but I kind of hid behind them, and I felt safe. And this man walked down to the office, opened the door, and he looked like he had a mission. He knew what he wanted. He was kind of just like throwing things around until he was going to find what he was looking for. And at that time, he also dropped his gun. And Brother Tony slid out from underneath the pews and grabbed the gun, and everything after that was fine. And that's how the dream ended. Well, that morning, it really, really touched me. And I called Lucy and I said, can I tell you this dream that I had with Brother Tony in it? And as I told her the dream, and as we got done, I told her, I says, I just felt like that was the evil one trying to interfere on our work. And she says, and also too, Tony represented the ministry. And I think that now after hearing these visions and experiences, is how the ministry is there to help us, and that we need to be able to depend on them to stay focused and away from the evil one. And that was my dream.
Yeah, very appropriate. Very appropriate. Well,
I was just going to say, I have not for the last 2 weeks been able to get the Song of Zion about laboring this, and it goes, I'm trying to find the number, can't find the number right now, but it's not, the one that says it's not the time to be idle.
If you would labor in Zion.
If you would labor in Zion, that, yeah. And that has, it just goes, I can't stop it. It's like you know, through my head constantly, and I'm singing parts of it. And I really think that it, you know, I got from it, you know, it's not the time to be idle. It's now.
And that was reaffirmed in that second experience. Can you guys pull that up on the screen, and maybe in the segue between Sunday school and Jeremy, you're gonna open today, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we can segue into that song. Okay,
Would you like me to
yeah,
play it? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Let me see if I can.
I'll try and grab it. on the
You wanna put
screen.
up here?
Yeah.
You got the words there?
Yeah, I'm gonna try and grab it. Hold on one second.
Hmm?
Share.
What?
What's the title again?
If you would labor in Zion.
What number is it?
I think it's number 102, Jeremy says. Yeah, we can hear it.
Cast your net on the right side, leave your cares on
Sorry about that. I think we lost one of the verses.
That's okay. It worked.
No, what verse really touched me was when I think it was the second one, when it said, if you say that you love me, then you must labor. And that's just really, really touched me.
Yeah.
Brother Walt,
Yeah,
sorry, Brother Johnny, may I add something before we move
You
on?
want- sure.
While we were reading and thinking of these experiences, and I was wondering to myself, well, exactly what can I do? What is my role to be? And my mind went back to a dream I had quite a number of years ago. I won't run through the whole thing, but the gist of it was we found a baby. It was in the spring of the year. It was wet and miserable, like, typical March. And we found a baby outdoors, and bringing the baby inside to warm it and to wait for an ambulance. Somebody said, "Who will pray for this child?" And I said, "I will pray for this child." And it just hit me that, yes, that's what I can do. That's my job, is pray for this work.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that.
Well, I think that's very appropriate because it's kind of moving me as well. And I'm thinking, well, at 78 years old almost, I don't see myself trekking too much to the reservations and being able to do things like that. And so I'm thinking about what else can you do? And that's a great insight. There is something that we can do. If it's nothing but just praying for the work for those that go, and at the reception of the message that they give to those people, provide what's beginning to happen. They're accepting it and they're turning it around. So I appreciate that dream you had and that experience, because again, all of us, probably need to reflect a little bit about, how do we labor? Labor can come in different ways. And fasting and praying is a labor in some way, shapes, and forms. And if the Lord can direct us to do that, and if that's all we can do, then that's what we can do. To Joyce's point, if you love me, then labor somehow and understand what your capacity is and your limitations and what your possibilities are, and don't go too far. So again, thanks for that. I think it's very timely as well.
Well, our brother Walt, having been there at conference and witnessing in person just the collective spirit and gathering and sentiment in the church, it's nice to hear that in his voice, and he's taken some of that back to us today. And these are certainly exciting things, and I think part of the work that we can do, it's mentioned in those experiences, is to prepare ourselves that we might also be where we need to be spiritually. And that's kind of what I was looking to speak on today. The subject that I had in mind was letting go. And as the Lord brings about this new focus and this new time period, and there's just so much change happening, we have to make room for it. And in order to embrace sometimes the new thing, you have to let go of the old. And this is kind of spoken to in the book of Isaiah. In the 43rd chapter, the 18th verse, it says, "Remember ye not the former things, neither consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall ye not know it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert." Now that last part there is a clue. He's talking about the gathering of Zion. And it begins, it says in those experiences, with the tribe of Joseph. And we are blessed to have a part in that. That's it's moving, isn't it? That the Lord would use us in such a way. And I'll just preface before I get any further with this, that I am certainly preaching to myself as well as anyone else today. And of course, that's always the case. I try to share a lesson or a sermon as the Lord inspires, but so often I think I see the room in my own life to apply these things. But Paul echoes this sentiment a little bit in his own walk with the Lord. So in the New Testament, he says in Philippians 3:13, brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forth unto those things which are before. And I guess I would say that that's not easy to do. If you've ever kind of had to let go, it's just not a comfortable thing. For one, what you have. You know what it's like. You know what it is to let go of that. And you don't always know what the new thing is. And so as you look ahead to something that you don't know yet and think, well, I have to sometimes surrender what I do know for what I don't know, it's very unnerving. And I think that was true for Israel when they were led out of Egypt. They were going to a foreign place. It didn't last long. It didn't take long before they started to wish they could go back to Egypt, because that's what they knew. And for us, I think we kind of understand that God promises what he has, this new thing he's going to do, is better than what we have. And we understand that at face value, but we haven't experienced it. And so we're still in this position of having to make room in our lives, in our hearts, for this unknown thing, and to part ways with that which we have been familiar with. And so I think there's some fear involved in letting go. And I was watching a show called Heartland. I don't know if anyone has seen it, but there's one episode that particularly struck me, and just so happened that I saw it this week, and it went well with the lesson, the message, because it illustrates this point so well. And so there's this character, the main character. She's this 16, 17-year-old girl, and she's had some hard times in life. She's lost her mother, and she's really kind of found comfort in her horse. And she rides and she jumps, and rides for competitions, and the horse is very good. And all of a sudden one day, the horse wouldn't make a jump. It would gallop up to the, whatever you call it, the jump, the hurdle, and then just abruptly stop. And I don't know that much about horses. I understand you have to do something with the reins, right, to control the horse. And I would imagine that as you do a jump, you're guiding the horse over that jump with the reins. And part of the message in the show is that there's a connection between the horse and its owner, and that the horse can sense anxiety or different things from the rider. And so this girl is kind of this horse whisperer, but she couldn't figure out how to get this horse over this issue. It had done so well before. And so she goes to see a Native American, and he gives her counsel, and he begins to tell her, the issue isn't your horse, it's you. And she began to think about how she was putting things in her life on hold. She was sort of keeping people at arm's length, and she was stuck. Her life was frozen into place in some sense, because she couldn't move forward. And perhaps this was because she was afraid of, moving on. She was missing her mom. She was seeing failed relationships in her life and therefore afraid to form new ones. And there's this really moving scene where she's with this Indian person, this native, and he's coaching her through this, and she tries again with her horse. And finally, she decides to let go. And so she literally raises her hands as she's riding up to the jump and lets go of the reins. And the horse does the jump. And she begins to realize in that moment, it's time for me to let go of my fears and move forward. And I think that's part of our work today, relating to our Sunday school, that we think about, well, the Lord is saying, it's time. What do I need to let go of? That I might be ready for this time period, that I might bring myself to where I need to be spiritually, that I would be more fit to do the work. Because I can say it's harder to do the work that God has for us if we're not right with him. So I thought, that was inspiring to me. And I would just add this briefly, and then I won't speak too long. I have a couple more scriptures to close with, but sometimes our words reveal this struggle that we have. If we find ourselves sort of repeating, and maybe we're also stuck in our lives, and we get on our soapbox, and maybe it's because, when you find yourself saying the same things over and over again, it perhaps is because you feel no one's listening, or maybe that you're angry and you need to vent, and perhaps you get some therapy out of that, but then the problem isn't fixed. And so oftentimes the things that we say are revealing this struggle in us. And we need to be able to get to a point in which we can speak from the heart, and we can fix what's in our heart, so that the things that we say are good because our heart is good. And so we can watch ourselves and observe and hear ourselves and see if what we're saying is edifying, and see what it is that we're struggling with. And it manifests in our relationships, doesn't it? As you talk with others, the things you talk about and the connection you have with others. And I think all of this sort of relates to our need for unity in the church, and to seek for greater understanding, that we might have a common knowledge in the Lord. And in the meantime, if the way I see things is different than the way you see things, I don't think our charge here is to surrender what we actually think is true, but to say that in the midst of our disagreement, I still value you. I still have a love and a regard, a high regard for you as a saint in God's church. And I think that's perhaps the attitude we should have as we try to sort out our differences. And I would say that, many times what happens when you have disagreement is that you also need to let go. And sometimes when you have disagreement, it's really about something else. It's about a struggle for who's going to be in charge. And that kind of thing, I think, has been detrimental, even in the church. Make no mistake, it's the Lord who needs to be in charge. It does not matter what one person or one elder or one apostle thinks. It matters what God thinks. And I think that this paradigm shift is going to be a significant transition for the church, because there's a reason things start with Joseph. The Book of Mormon prophesies that Joseph would be like Moses of old. Well, Moses was in charge. He was a great leader. And so maybe there's something there. But I love that line in the experience that says, you'll all know it is from me. There will be no disagreement. Everyone will understand this is God's work. And I don't, I think my Uncle Paul's on, he had sent me a wonderful experience. And I was reading it. It's about Zion and people moving to Zion, walking, migrating to the kingdom, and on the way, I think, to a place of hiding as well. And he says, as he saw that that happen, that people were marching to this place, and there were observers who saw them, and they understood that whatever this was, it was of God. And I think there will be no question as the Lord begins to reveal his hand more and more that this is really the Lord's work. And there's so many lines in the songs of Zion that talk about this too. You know, these songs are for our time to help us through. And so if we're looking for an understanding, a greater clarity of what the Lord's doing in this time, it's easy just to take a moment and read through some of those. And these revelations, these songs of prophecy will help us to have insight into what's happening. And, they talk about keeping step. And it says there, don't look back or the fire will burn you. It's saying, hey, understand you're leaving behind all the sorrows. There's that song, The Ending of the Sorrow, and you're looking ahead to a greater time. And so it's encouraging us to let go of the past, to let go of what we're familiar with, so that we make room in our lives for something greater. And the scriptures I wanted to share from the Book of Mormon, this is Alma 9, and in the 16th verse, he says, "For there are many promises which are extended to the Lamanites." That's what we're talking about today, really, is in large part the Lamanite people. "For it is because of their traditions that their fathers, that caused them to remain in their state of ignorance." And that's really what we're describing here, that when we can't let go of the past, and sometimes we struggle to let go of the things that are not really God's will, we get stuck. Just like that character in the show, our lives are placed on hold and we can't move ahead. It says, "Therefore the Lord will be merciful unto them and prolong their existence in the land." So, it's quite a prophecy, and we're seeing that here. And Alma circles back to this, I think, again in the 17th chapter and the 15th verse. And it kind of, I think, connects well with this first verse. It says, "Thus they were a very indolent people, many of whom did worship idols, and the curse of God had fallen upon them because of the traditions of their fathers." And again, I'm kind of using that word traditions as the thing we need to let go of sometimes, the thing that holds us back. But the last part says, "Notwithstanding, the promises of the Lord were extended unto them on the conditions of repentance." And, this is true, I think, for us as well today, that if we can bring ourselves to let go of maybe the thing we've been holding on to, or the thing that's holding us back, that those promises will be available to us as well. And so we can go with this kind of experience to the house of Israel, to the tribe of Joseph, and tell them, this is what God did for me. And here it is written in your own record that he's promised to do the same for you. So these were my thoughts today. May God bless you. It's been good to see you all today. And I was hoping for a more in-person gathering today. Ends up we had a lot of things preventing that today, but miss you all, and praying for you all, and that God will be blessing you and helping you through the things that you're facing in your lives. I know each of us have a walk to make, but we take some comfort in knowing we're all doing this together, and we're filled with love. Our hearts are stirred as we gather in fellowship, because we see each other and we hear each other's testimonies, and we feel a common spirit and a shared excitement for the things that God is doing. So that's a privilege and a joy to share in that with all of you. So may God bless you today.
Amen. Great message. You know, who knew when Disney made that movie Frozen that song "Let It Go" would become a spiritual theme? You know, and it was a good message. I think again, it's time to, you know, like those experiences had. It's time for us to kind of be a little more introspective in terms of our preparation. The Lord's been clear about preparing and preparing and preparing. He's been clear in saying now, now, now. He's been clear in saying labor, labor, labor. And that means different things for all of us. But I think Jeremy's message is right on in terms of we need to look inside of us to find out what could be those things that prevent us from doing maybe just a little bit more for the Lord's work. Like that experience that Rob had, you know, comes down sometimes that pray, just pray, you know, is something that's enough to move the needle in God's direction for somebody else. So I'm gonna just you can start the testimony here if you like. You ready for that?
I am.
Okay.